Hey, everybody. This is Heather Lockyer, Lasting Conversations, and we might be recording on a Monday, but as we know, these shows are timeless, and we are here with the absolutely vivacious Ande Lyons. Hey, Ande.
I am so happy to be here, Heather. Hi, how are you? Hello, listeners and viewers. I'm waving from Boston and wishing you a
Yes.
delicious day wherever you're glowing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And it's somewhat early in the morning already, but we've been laughing and having just a grand old time already on a Monday. And, Ande is in the Boston area, which is my favorite. And I'm here taping today in Jupiter, Florida. So we just love these technologies that can bring us together and share our wisdom. And we're going to just go there today. And once again, Ande Lyons.
Hey, I'm just so grateful that technology is where it's at today. I waited decades for this technology to be here.
So this is perfect. I'm so glad you said that because Ande is a prolific podcaster herself. She's actually been doing this for over a decade. And I want to talk about podcasting itself for just a moment. But right now, her wheelhouse, she comes from business and has careers in that. But right now, her focus is on aging and anti-aging, as in from what's been internalized mentally, spiritually, if we've thought that there's a bizarre clock that says, oh, you have to stop and you have to retire. You're not seen anymore. You're not worthy. So Ande's podcast is called Don't Be Caged by Your Age. Age is just a number that we know, and we're here to thrive and advance and have new dreams. And I'm going to touch on, we are also wisdom keepers for the next generation coming up. We're learning from each other. So Ande, thanks again and welcome. And talk to us about your podcast and the generational piece within talking and the communication thereof, because it's really very exciting.
Well, I'm going to start off with saying I wrote a post on LinkedIn when I turned 66. So if you're tuning in from the US, you know we have this thing called Route US 66, right? So I got the sign, held it up in front of myself and said, and I came out. I'm 66. Now, in my generation, and I'm a boomer baby, I was born in 1956, women never mentioned their age. You never aged out loud. And based on all the content out there from brands, you best not be saying how old you are because you need to be looking younger. In fact, you're shamed into saying that you're that age. And even if someone says, oh, you look great for your age, that's an ageist story. So when
certainly is.
So when I came out, I had been in the startup ecosystem for most of my life, and I had been a global startup mentor, part of large accelerator programs, global mentoring for 8 years. I had a pitch event here in Boston every month for startup founders. That's a very young community. And so when I wrote this post, Heather, I started off with, when I turned 50, I said, it's time to hang up my entrepreneurship tiara. That's for a younger person's game. 16 years later, I've had 2 more businesses. And the response went through the roof. I've never had anything go viral before. It went viral. And I heard all these stories from people about how they had reinvented themselves, how they had repurposed their lived experiences. And I was so blown away by this. And so I have been podcasting since 2012. I had the most recent one prior to Don't Be Caged by Your Age was the Startup Life show and Startup Life Live show, where I went live on all the platforms twice a week for 3 years. Thank you, COVID, interviewing diverse founders from around the world and diverse investors. So I was in this ecosystem where youth was so focused. And I said, you know what, look at these people who are doing these remarkable things as they are aging into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Mm-hmm. And so then I did research, and I found out in 2021, the World Health Organization let everybody know that retirement was becoming a health crisis that was costing societies billions. That's not just US societies, that's Canadian, that's the European societies, because all of a sudden we're telling a generation of extraordinary people that they're not needed anymore. And I'm a firm believer that pastures are for horses, not people, right? And so off they went, and people were like, well, wait, what? And not only were those 65-year-olds and older going, what, nobody needs me. I have no purpose anymore. Humans need
So that was the point of the whole, that they, because we're all about messaging, and words are very, very powerful. And
very
so
powerful.
there was no ... but look at it from another person. They literally said, oh yeah, aging is detrimental to your health. Was
my
that
gosh,
kind of
because what happened is once a person, a human who needs purpose, all of a sudden they were used to being connected, visible. I don't care if you were the lunch lady at the elementary school,
which is the best, very important job. Yes,
exactly. Not only were you seen and connected and part of a team making things happen, but you had the little ones going by all the time. Well, think about all the skills you built over the years doing that.
Yes.
How you could repurpose those skills. You are important, you are valuable, but what society, what advertising, institutions were telling you is no, you're no longer visible, viable. And here's a little interesting nugget, Heather. Those who are in pre-retiree stages, 50, 55, they're considered permafrost at a company. Why? Are you, anybody listening, in your 50s? Is someone saying, hey, how can we help you up your game? No, they're saying you're no longer ambitious. We're going to focus on the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds and give them the training they need. And
they don't want to invest. They don't want to continue investing.
They don't understand. Ambition is ageless.
Right.
And so, so I said, I have to start having conversations with people who have shattered age-related expectations, right?
Yeah.
And who are figuring it out or figured it out or are talking and helping people figure out how they can take this period of their life from 55 to 80. Okay. This is not retirement years. These are rewirement years. These are your renaissance years. These are, how do I want to live and continue earning money and be connected and visible, but without being caught up in the hustle culture. So I'm only 11 episodes in, but I am learning so much from my guests, and they are sharing valuable information from all walks of life, from the woman who does the laughter yoga, or the one who's solo traveling at 65, or the model who just got signed up at 66. Okay. And she never modeled in her entire life. To folks who are more seasoned, more in the senior business C-suite arena, right? How they are going in. And the big conversation that we're seeing is this wonderful intergenerational experience folks are having, right?
Right.
Where, and maybe you've seen the movie The Intern with Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro. It is the best example of how intergenerational work can happen. I know as a startup founder, mentoring at my age with younger 35 and under, oh my God, they couldn't get enough of me, Heather. It was just like, I go, wait a minute, I could be your grandmother, and they're like, no, you're so fascinating. So we can have that internalized belief. We're too old to do something new, like modeling. What? Or we're too old to do something fun and interesting. And how do we get to that? Or that some belief that we have about aging can hold us back. And, you don't want to do that. 7 out of 10 pre-retirees want to work. And it's not just about the money. Again, they're used to a certain level of connection, clout, their networking, all of that. They don't want to just go off and play golf and have cocktails, with all due respect for the 3% that do want to do that. Or, grandchildren, or play in their garden. Absolutely. One gentleman I spoke with had, I don't know, like 50 years in the, I think insurance, or 30 years, 35 years in insurance. And then he got home and he started gardening. He'd never had a perennial garden before. And he started working on that. And then he saw all the bees. And he said, well, gosh, look at all those bees. I better get a hive. And next thing he did, he got a hive, a bunch of hives. And then he said, well, what am I going to do with all this honey? And he did some research, and now he has a honey business. I mean, it can be anything, just understanding how you're wired, how to rewire all those conversations in your head about how you're too old to fill in the blank, and also finding other ways to make money at the same time you're waking up with purpose. So I'm just exploring this through Don't Be Caged by Your Age, through the best medium you can use, which is podcasting. Now, Heather and I here are video, but I've been live streaming since 2012. Heather, you've been doing it for years yourself. We're comfortable with video, but podcasting is also phenomenal, just audio, right, Heather?
It absolutely is, because you can listen anywhere. You can pop it in and
Right.
drive, and you're not even the visual is great, but there is something to just plain audio where you don't have the other distractions. Now, so Ande, this is so juicy, and you've touched on so many amazing things. And one thing that the visual came to my mind is as a tree. A tree keeps growing and maturing. And we never would think to say, well, stop. Now that you're a sapling, now stop, or you haven't been good enough. No, the tree just keeps going and going and going and going and going, and offers that kind of stability as well.
Right.
So that's just this beautiful metaphor for all of us, that we can still stand
Right.
tall, stand strong, and have each ring. Our wrinkles are great, right?
Oh my
Each ring
gosh,
of a tree it's just perfect. The other thing has to do with that threading of the generations that you were touching on.
Mhm.
And we have some guests that came on from the Gentlemen of the Back Nine. They have a podcast for those similar. They're sports guys. They're from golf. So they use the back nine of life. What is the next round? And their podcast is very phenomenal, taking people from all kinds of walks of life and lots of sports and business and things. So within the conversation that I had with them recently, I was reminded of a moment that I had at a diner very serendipitously. And a 22-year-old was in a kind of her own moment herself. And we were just having breakfast. But to make a long story short, I was thinking, my goodness, am I talking to my 22-year-old self here? And she started crying to say, I think I'm just getting all this wisdom from my older self. Because here's this young girl was at a professional and personal precipice of her time. And it was so just beautiful, going to what you were saying about the movie, The Intern, that we need each other. We need the generations. None of these generations deserve to be canceled out and discredited. Right. And every generation of the older people, pre our recording, you were saying, if the older people are thinking the younger ones are lazy or stupid. No. And I immediately flashed to, say, the Archie Bunker show. Like every older generation thinks the younger ones are young or lazy and stupid. You can go to the 1800s and they're thinking their kids are lazy and stupid. So, but that's just it. The newer generations are here to help us go forward. We're talking about technology, just go forward in new thinking, new ways of being. But we're here to bridge together. So I love all of these things. And so we had the back nine. I also had, on my trip last summer, going into Niagara Falls, had a beautiful time there. And these folks were riding bicycles, but turns out they were clearly well into their 70s, even 80s, and they were going out for bike rides. And the gentleman who's actually in New England and in New Hampshire, senior cycling. So we had a great conversation about the same premise: to go out, see the world. How do you want to spend your time? What are you thinking about yourself? And now that you don't have to be in the quote rat race, maybe you have some finances. You want, now, how do I spend this money? If you've been working so hard for decades, now what? How do you get to play? And again, you don't have to just sit home unless you want to. If you need that rest, do that. But so there are so many people reinvigorating or rewiring, as you're saying, that mental thought of the clock. I'm going to round this out to say it's the clock, so that even by 50, you're saying the businesses are considering permafrost. But I know plenty of people in their 50s, and maybe that thought of, well, that's a midlife crisis, because you're terrified of retirement. You're terrified of aging because you think you're done. And now what? And I can't afford it. So these messages are so pervasive. So we're all here to shatter all of those.
We are. And you can use technology, right, as one of the barometer checks, which is LinkedIn recently had an ad they had to take down because it was so ageist about an older person not knowing technology. We have been building technologies and coding since the 70s.
That's right.
Older than the Zeds and millennials' parents. Okay. So we know technology. There are going to be people who are going to play stupid with technology. And I invite anybody who's saying, oh, I can't do technology, anybody over 60, look, if you can put a toaster down, you put a piece of toast in the toaster, you can do technology. Right. You need to always be learning new skills, learning new things. This is how we keep the brain agile. But we internalize this ageist belief about what we can't do. And you may want to pursue a whole nother career in another direction. And one of the things that I have learned where I had to check my own bias, Heather, is I interviewed a woman who she was let go at the age of 58, went to go get another job, couldn't get hired, and ended up launching a resume services business because she had to learn how to beat the system, the scanning systems on resumes, because when you go to apply to a job, you're going to have the ATS, automatic tracking system, whatever it's called, scan your resume. Well, there are hints that you're going to have in your resume that they're going to toss you out because they'll know right away you're over 50 or over 55. So she learned how to beat the game, game the system, so to speak. Why?
Right.
Because she has been gaming, as in shooting zombies, etc., since before personal computers. They used to use mainframes. They would send out punched cards and get them back, and that's how they would game. And when she said, I'm a gamer, I was like, oh, what, bridge? I was thinking bingo. There's a whole generation of folks over 50 and 55 who are gamers. In fact, assisted living homes have to up their Wi-Fi's and
that's right.
Things for the gaming. So there's so many things that we talk about ourselves. Cyndi Lauper. I repurpose a lot of content on Don't Be Caged by Your Age on the Instagram channel, TikTok, and YouTube. And one of my favorites is Cyndi Lauper in her wonderful Staten Island type accent or Brooklyn accent going, what, you're going to look under the hood, check my oil, kick the tires? Why do you need to know? What's this ageist stuff? And she was so funny. But so many, especially women, being asked, well, how does it feel to have your beauty fade? What?
It's a ridiculous question.
Yes. And then we do it to ourselves. And you see, especially for women around cosmetics and how they're supposed to use this, women are starting to use Botox in their 20s. I mean, come on, like wrinkles are a hazard. And so what I'm trying to do is normalize aging and be pro-aging by saying, I'm 67. All of my guests, we start off, what's your age? 72. And you hear their stories and you're like, wow, my husband, who is 72, is at the top of his game doing what he has wanted to do his whole life. He's in renewable energy, specifically energy storage. It took most of his life for it to become where it is today. And he's revered in his industry. He's having a blast. What, he's going to stop that?
Right.
I'm 67. Same thing, just launched a community-based podcasting group to create community. Couldn't find it, so I created it, leading the charge, creating the space. Why not? So
absolutely.
It's kind of reframing, as you said earlier, ways we could do fun things. There's this funny group in Florida. They're called Romeo, and it's retired old men eating out. It's like the Kaminsky method, right? With Michael Douglas. But they're out and they're eating and they're engaging and they're doing. They go off on different assignments. They'll volunteer. They'll do score. They'll do all these other things. Plan what they're going to do. We just really need to look at this age and not put people out to pasture and that loneliness aspect. So often people have just been, oh my God, I can't wait till I retire. Oh my God, I'm just going to have anything I want to do, I'm going to be able to do. Or maybe they're sitting there kind of scared because typical boomer savings is around 100, anywhere between 88 and 160,000 for retirement. And look, you're going to live well into your 80s. So how are you going to fuel that? But so many people aren't planning for who they're going to be during this time. They may have planned correctly financially and in other ways, and maybe physically, but not who are they going to be. And the reason it's become such a crisis with the World Health Organization, Heather, is due to the fact that health starts to decline when you're not on purpose, when you're not engaged, when you're not visible, and the loneliness factor. Yep. And all of a sudden, well, where is the good? I can't go out. I can't hear, or I can't go out because my teeth look terrible. And all these different things start happening and people start to fade, but they don't die. Okay. Right. And and forms of mental cognitive, it's not always dementia, but because people aren't learning new things, encouraged to learn new things, supported in learning new things, they start to decline cognitively. And that's not good either. So anything I can do to help change people's minds and reframe the stories they tell themselves about aging, the stories that they were told watching their parents during the Industrial Revolution, et cetera, knowing that life expectancy was a little shorter then, so retiring at 65 made sense. So many stories you hear about people who die 6 months later, right? A year.
Oh, it's so true. I was just mentioning something to that effect with somebody recently, because they were talking about, they've had long careers, they're tired, they might be finished with what they've been doing, and they want to get their retirement packages and all of that. But there was some, we call that maybe the intangible with what they were talking about. And I ended up saying, you realize, don't wait. Because they were so focused on, well, this 2 years or this or this, but be careful what you wish for sometimes, right? And what is it that you want to do that you're thinking you're going to do then that maybe you can do now? Do it today. Right. Do it today.
And that's why I always promote Jerry Sedler's book, Don't Retire, Rewire. She wrote this in 2001. It's on its 3rd edition, but she has traveled the world from Dubai to Des Moines collecting data. And yeah, her career is stunning. I mean, when you look at her background, you're like, wow. But she has those questions that you can go through and find out so you can start planning. And you know what? It might be a patchwork quilt, right? It might be, I'm going to do this for 3 years, and I'm going to go do this for a year, and then I'm going to go do this for 4 years. Nobody's holding you to what you're going to do, and you need to experiment. You might say, oh, I want to be a landscaper. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh God, I hate this. I mean, this is fun as a hobby, but no way am I doing this for like what I want to do or be. So you pull on threads and you're gentle with yourself. You're like, oh, okay, that didn't work out. What's next? So this whole journey.
I love that you just said that, to be very gentle with ourselves. And I think that's part of it too. And especially again, with the work focus, is that there's the grind and you can throw out all the different words that are out there, the hustle, the grind, the side hustle, and all of these things that aren't gentle per se. But this is where, and I know from my perspective, for all the young kids, the younger parents, that they know this. And so they're allowing more playtime. And what I even mean by play could literally mean playing a game or going to the beach or doing yoga or something like that. But it's that playful mind. Right. It's that inquisitive and curious, so that we don't have to be the next 30 years. We don't have to plan so much, really. So maybe it's 6 months, or maybe it's a road trip, or maybe it is a job, or maybe it's the volunteering you mentioned about SCORE, which is a beautiful organization for newcoming business people trying to learn things for those who've been in the business industries forever. So there's so much room to breathe and to be gentle with ourselves, so we don't have to feel that we're getting something wrong.
Well, and also, the big learning that we can get from the millennials and Zeds is they work to live.
Yes. They're not living to work. That's the switch.
We were indoctrinated. Yes. We have been caught into what I call the toxic productivity movement based on toxic capitalism. What can we squeeze out of every employee and get them all excited and reward them because they're doing the job of 3 people, right? And we can reach them anytime, 24/7. I mean, if anybody's watched Emily in Paris on Netflix, I love how the French are like, oh no, we do not talk about business at parties, or we do not talk business over the weekends.
Right.
And that's what they embrace. And they're very we-oriented, and their values are, yeah, if I don't get a house, that's okay. I'm all right with renting. It's all right. It's okay.
Yep. And it's okay. There it goes to that clock. We were so indoctrinated by time, TikTok, and these new kids it's just a new day of time where we don't have time. I mean, it's a different concept of time. That's where we can kind of chill and explore and allow for that fun. Now, your show is gaining a lot of support. You've been doing this for a long time. And one of the things that we touched on prior to recording is community. And so from that, so you and I saw each other. We didn't talk at PodFest in January, but there were 2,000 people who came together. And I know we're at our 4-year anniversary of the initial Corona shutdown, which brought fruit to so many things, especially podcasting and the technology to stay connected over the interwebs. However, there's still this yearning to physically be in contact with each other. So you've just started a group, and you were talking about community, and this show, Rising Conversation, is all about community. And it's so fun when you're physically in proximity to people, and that energy of that, and that you're building and thriving through each other. And you just had a great weekend event. So tell us more about that, because it's when you were saying they drove from here and here and here.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, anyone tuning in, the podcast community is so much fun. It's a very welcoming community. It is a very safe community. And people are doing, especially the indie podcasters, are doing what lights them up, what they're passionate about. And so there is that. But when you see that or feel that through a lens, it's okay. But you're multitasking when that's going on. You really are, because you've got your room around you. You've got other things on your mind. When you show up physically, a couple things happen. One, you are present, but also it is the group dynamic.
Yep.
And this is why education in person can be so much more important. I mean, you can learn anything you want online, but going forward, the educational institutions are really going to be about that in-person experience. And so creating community, I was looking for community. I had been in the startup ecosystem where community is a little different and a lot harder. And I say this because it's just like when toddlers are very me, and hyper-focused on what their needs are, that's age appropriate. Startup founders are the same way. You're either going to give them money, or you're going to help them scale their business, or get out of the way. So the reciprocity isn't really there, except for maybe among founders, right? They might be able to have a community around, well, who do you know? But honestly, and if they're parents and founders, like, they have no bandwidth really for building community. And I learned this and finally said, you know what, I need a community where reciprocity is happening, where people want to sit and really have enriching conversations, where we're going to collaborate and celebrate and connect. And after PodFest, that was my first PodFest experience, I said, I need to create this in New England. We didn't have anything up here. And I said, okay, I'm just going to start making that happen. And I put it out, and people shared, yep, we're interested. And then one of the members is the treasurer for a place called Westford Community Access TV. And he said, come on over. And I drove down. It's about 20 minutes from where I live outside of Boston. And it has state-of-the-art TV studio and a state-of-the-art podcast studio. And I said, oh my gosh, folks are going to go crazy meeting here. I mean, it's not just some random conference room, right? This is what we do. Holy mackerel. And they're like, yes, we'd love to host you for free. Oh my gosh. And so I created the first in-person event for May 11th. And honestly, Heather, I thought I would be thrilled if 6 people showed up. And I knew who 6 were going to be, right? We had a speaker, a featured speaker, and she talked about prospering with podcasting, all the different wonderful ways you can monetize what you're doing and earn income with podcasting. And I thought, okay, if 6 people showed up, this would be great. But all the people who RSVP'd showed up. I was blown away. We had 2 people from what we call down east in New England. That's up in Maine.
Yeah.
Arrive. We had folks from New Hampshire, all over New Hampshire. They're all over from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. Drive an hour and a half, 2 hours, all these folks to be here in person. And they had a phenomenal experience, meaningful and memorable experience, which enlivened them and enhanced their podcast journey. That's what community is for, right? It's for all those intangibles that you cannot get from virtual, including the hugging. I call it hugging in real life. Looking someone in the eyes and really taking in physically on almost a cellular level their excitement and passion or concerns or roadblocks or whatever they're going through. And then there's the collaboration that will happen because now trust has happened.
Right.
And so you have, I know who this person really is now. I mean, and now I know their advice or how we can help each other and collaborate to add wind to each other's sails. So I'm sure anybody who's held a party and worried, will anybody show up, right? That it can be a little scary when you have hold an event, but create the space and magic can happen.
Absolutely. What I love is that's like the first drop in the bucket. And that was just the first one. But this notion where, some people are thinking, well, people are more comfortable online and they've almost forgotten to be in physical proximity. And that's okay too, but there's really, really nothing like it. We're in here at Team Lasting Conversations. We're all about that physical, tangible connection. That's where we get to the heart of everything. You're feeling that resonance with other people. And clearly you're one to create a safe space. And the word is competition. You're talking about in the previous with founding and upstarts. That's great. But there's that built-in kind of cage of, well, I need all of this. So you can't have competitors in. This is a different era. It's a different business. With podcasting, there's room for everybody because it's about voice and sharing. You're finding that because you've been doing this well over 10 years. So the baby podcasting times, how have you found that growth? Do you feel that there's a saturation level or really not? What is your take on that?
In fact, we learned from Angel, our presenter this weekend, that out of the almost 500,000 podcasts that are out there, most of them are podcast fade, that there's only 53,000 that are truly active. That's a lot. And I'm going to say the Seth Godin quote, which is, sure, it's been done before, but not by you and not for us. So that's an important thing for any endeavor that you have, that you're bringing mine's Ande Lyons, you're bringing your own vibe to whatever it is you do for the people who are in alignment with your vibe, right? Podcasting. So podcasting since 2012. So I had a producer for my first year of podcasting. After that, I was on Blog Talk Radio all by myself, did fine. Then I was on Blab. Then I was doing maybe Spreaker or somebody. And it was always a funnel for my businesses. So I never really looked at it completely like podcasting, like what are all the bells and whistles? How do I want to get better at this? Because I knew just having a podcast was going to help me reach more people, create EEAT, which is what the search engines need. They need to know your expertise, your experience, your authority, and your trustworthiness before they start promoting you in anything online. And so that podcasts are the best way. If you're switching to a new industry, get a podcast, because first of all, everybody's going to answer the phone when you call them and say, do you want to listen to me, old school, answer the phone, answer your email.
Phones are good too, though, man. And I had tech drop and the emails weren't working. And where's your phone number? And somebody literally said, well, thank goodness we had a phone to be able to text or talk to each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Folks that would be so hard to get generally when they find out that you have a podcast. Hi, who are you? Yes, happy. Or their PR people will get them on there. Right. And I bring all this up because when I finished with the live 250 live episodes last June for the Startup Life live show, I did a 30 episode series called Your Ink Story, which was interviewing people about their body art, their tattoos, why they got them, the story behind their body art. And it was a nice little segue before I launched Don't Be Caged by Your Age. And so that's when I learned the amazing tools out here for podcasting. You have Podpage, which helps you set up a website that you could never do with all the bells and whistles they have. It's $18 a month. You have Cast Magic, that's $12 a month. It takes your transcript and turns it to, using AI, gives you 10 titles you could use, a newsletter, a LinkedIn post, a thread, a reel script. I mean, oh my gosh. And you know how much faster it is to edit something that's been done for you. And so that's $12 a month. And then Opus Clips is $9 a month. That takes your landscape video and puts it into a portrait size video with text. And then you have Canva, that's another $9 a month. You see where I'm going, folks? And then you have either Zoom you're paying for, or I pay for StreamYard. That's where you're going to record. And then you're going to pay anywhere from 20 to 40 bucks a month for that. And then you're going to use something that's going to hold what's called your RSS feed. It's going to hold and host your podcast. Right. And so it's going to be a Buzzsprout. That's my favorite. Others use Anchor or Spotify now, or they're using Libsyn, places like that. So for me, Buzzsprout is probably like 18 bucks a month. I mean, you can see how this is a low entry cost. It is a creative outlet. So there is time that you put in. Interviewing like this, Heather has prepared a lot for this interview. She's bringing her outstanding, stellar interview skills that she's honed over the years. There's a lot of things that you put into it. So don't ever let anybody hobby shame you with being a podcast host. It is a wonderful outlet. There's editing. I use Descript. So that's another, 15 bucks a month. Anyway, the tools we have now today to do a podcast makes it so affordable, so easy. And for me, it's a creative outlet. Sure, would I love a team? Yes, but my team are the cats and the plants, right? I mean, my husband just nods nicely. No, he's interested, but it's like, he's not going to be helping me anytime soon. And so I do it myself, but I enjoy it. But there are people out there who you can absolutely hire to do this. But to me, it's just a wonderful platform that makes conversation so accessible. And remember, your network is your net worth. So as a host, you're building all these incredible connections through conversations with folks, which help amplify whatever it is that you're passionate about, what you're working on, but also you can do the same for them. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful medium.
It really is.
Did I go on too much?
No, not at all, not at all. But listen, I want to kind of round out our time with maybe give us a little nugget. There's been so many nuggets already. And you mentioned about the book about Don't Retire, Rewire. So is there something that you'd like to sort of share for those listening and watching about that reframing? And for me, I kind of go back to taking a pause, taking a breath, go outside, going into nature, having that bit of stillness to listen from within. Is there something that you would like to share with this reframing? Because again, there's a lot of people scared about a lot of things. Aging and affording our lives is a huge piece of this.
Yes, and we have a huge group coming to it. Ooh, there's something so freeing about embracing your age. I invite you to do that and start seeing it as the Renaissance period in your life. Hop on over to Don't Be Caged by Your Age, TikTok, Instagram feed, and see how all the content that's being shared and the conversations that are being shared there to help you see, wow, I'm a pretty big thing. Okay. I'm important. I know I have these lived experiences that are key out there, and find ways to stop those internalized voices that you don't may not even know that you have, that says, oh, I can't do
Right.
that. I'm too old. Or your own ageist beliefs, because we'll go to the doctors, and I get again and again from young doctors or my age doctors, oh, so you're retired? And I go, so you're ageist, right? You've got some real ageist belief there, assuming that I'm retired because I'm over 65. Don't hesitate to sort of call people out and just say, I just want to gently remind you that's an ageist comment. It's because it's one of the last socially acceptable prejudices out there. That whole senior citizen thing was created by politicians to put us in a category. So I just invite you to listen to the show and find ways for you to start reframing this time period, rewiring, and know that the world is not done with you. Okay.
Correct.
Your age is only the number of years we've had to enjoy your deliciousness. Okay. And we want you more. But what does that look like? And please take the time to do that work, that inner reflection. And yes, through listening with Heather and other podcast hosts can help you tap into and also see, the representation. And now it doesn't have to be that person who's, in the gym and lifting weights every day and going crazy in the bodybuilding, or that person who's scaling a mountain at 89, or that, there's some extreme representations out there.
Which you can, that's cool. But you don't have to compare.
You don't have to compare and despair.
Yeah.
You can,
I like that.
You can, find a way that is in alignment with who you are, your personality, and your body's constraints, because that's a whole nother level of radical self-love we have to do right now, right? We have to have the patience for where our body is at. Some of us have great DNA, or some of us did not play football, all right, or hockey and really destroy our bodies. So some of us, in our DNA, we've got challenges. Okay, there's workarounds that you can do and still have vibrant Renaissance period and a legacy period.
We'll leave it that and a legacy period, because that's just beautiful. You are Ande Lyons.
Thank you,
This
Heather.
is so fun. Where can people find you and reach out and listen and tell us how to be in contact?
Oh, I would love to hear from you and find out what your concerns are about aging, or how you are shattering age-related expectations. My name is Ande Lyons, ANDELYONS. You just put that into Google and you'll find me glowing everywhere. And please take a moment to tune in to Don't Be Caged by Your Age, found wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks again, Ande. And thanks, everybody, for listening. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything. Please like, review, and share this podcast. And if you want to be part of the conversations, you can find us on all the socials and podcasts at lastingconversations.com. Thanks again.